Welcome back to IPA, where we keep it real and raw. I'm your host, Imari Samaj, and I got another special guest with me. I'll allow him to introduce himself.
What's up? I'm Jack Russell, like the dog. Produce beats under Prod 13, mixing engineer, mastering engineer, music person. Yeah.
Damn, so who is Jack Russell?
Plug! The dog, bro. No, man, Jack Russell's been all over the place. I just consider myself like an experience.
That's real. That's real.
Like, I feel like what I like to do is just interact with people and make connections and go from there, whether that be music or work outside of music. I just like making connections.
I understand that. And so, where did the name Prod 13 come from? What was the inspiration behind that?
So, I feel like most artists started out on SoundCloud.
Mm-hmm.
So, SoundCloud usernames, you had to make one. Otherwise, they give you like the user 8375406. Yeah. So I'm, probably around that, probably like 12, 13.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd always found a lot of luck in the number 13. It brought people it brings people like some sort of like superstition. But for me, it had always brought me good luck, and they've been a sign for good things. People talk about like their spirit numbers, their angel numbers. That number has always just meant a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was also really into like hacking and shit at the time.
Yeah. I
did like a lot of C++, JavaScript, all that, and was really into like SQL injections, penetration testing, like dark web shit.
Mm-hmm.
And like you use the terminal a lot in Windows computers. So I was like, I'll call myself Terminal 13. It's the SoundCloud. But I was in middle school.
I mean, yeah. I feel like that would sound like a cool ass like gamer tag,
Type shit. I was just, didn't know what to do with it, so fuck it, threw it out there. And it sort of stuck. I realized it was kind of a mouthful, and like it left people questioning like, what is this? What does that mean? And as I got more into music, I was like, well, this whole like the terminal aspect really doesn't relate to me anymore. I'm not really doing all that hacker shit. Like, so fast forward, drop that, put 13. I've been doing that for a little bit. I've been DJing like all my high school dances, like just trying to make bread to build a studio for myself, get that Scarlett interface and like the first pair of monitors. And I was recognizing that people were like, well, it's a number, it's 13. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
It still left people questioning. So I was like, okay, I have to put something there to let them know who I am. So I put Prod there, let them know, I'm a producer, but more than that. And that just opens the door for conversation.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, shit, I asked him out, so
he's
doing something.
Yeah.
So tell me about like some of the more earlier inspirations that you got through music, through like who kind of, whether it was an artist or a family member who kind of put that in your mind, or was it just yourself? Like, did you always have the passion to just pursue it?
For sure. So I was doing all that hacking stuff, but at the same time, like there was always a lot of musical background. Starting off when I was a kid, my dad was always playing music around the house. He's a musical person. He's in the music industry, and he's in like the classical side of things. So he's always conducted orchestras. But growing up, he was like the assistant conductor, and like he'd do like not the main performances, but like the ones off at the side, little like promo events. He'd go like teach at schools and stuff like that. And so as I was growing up, I got to watch him progress and like sort of fight his way into the industry. So I think subconsciously that was a big inspiration.
Definitely.
And so he pushed me to play instruments. I played, started off on violin, went to viola, and from there I wasn't really that interested. Got to the point where it was like more of a chore and something that was fun to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that became that whole like hacking era where I was like, oh, I want to go the computer side of things,
Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like you were on the computer a lot just in general, though, because, like, I mean, the music was the passion, but the computer was like just the hobby, you know.
For sure.
Yeah. So, cause like I was doing a little research and I seen that like you had learned DOS at like 12.
Yeah.
So like, kind of walk me through like what was did you kind of just stumble upon it, or like had you already been practicing music and that was just kind of like your next progression in?
It was actually like nothing to do with the whole like classical side and the whole training. I had really like found myself at a point where I lost cool music to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had all the like old head stuff that my dad had been listening to and like his friends had been listening to, and my mom's taste in music was real eclectic, and it only took me a few years to realize that my mom's music taste was like really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't something that I was into like as a kid. And what actually piqued my interest again was Skrillex. I was obsessed, bro. I was like, oh my god, this like over the Call of Duty clips and like that whole era of the internet. It was crazy. When he did the...
What was that, like 2010?
Yeah, like 2010, 2011, like... I remember, like, the peak was when he did the track with A$AP Rocky.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that was the peak of cool.
This is facts.
And I was like, I have to DJ, make beats, and wear Pyrex.
Mm-hmm.
So... I couldn't afford the Pyrex, and I couldn't afford the DJ gear, and I was like, well, my mom has a 2009, like, iMac, the little, like, it was the first year that they did them where it was all-in-one display.
Yeah.
And we got that in Canada, and at first it didn't release initially in Canada, so I remember we had to go over the border, get it in Detroit, and then smuggle that shit back. And my parents would not let me touch that computer because it was like the holy grail, you know?
Yeah.
Even though it was a little bit dated, but man, I sure as shit opened up a GarageBand and just, you know, tried to figure it out.
Like, how would you compare your passion for it then versus your passion for it now? Because I know sometimes like passion can like die off and come back in like different cycles, you know? So like, talk about that.
For sure. I was initially very disappointed. And I feel like that's, like, it happens to a lot of creatives when they want to dive into something 100%, but then there's a massive learning curve. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize what I was getting into was just, like, the tip of the iceberg of music production. I didn't realize that it took more than dragging in MIDI and, you know, getting cool samples and synths to make a good song. And so... when I got to like my late high school years, I knew what I was doing. I had learned FL Studios, Logic, Pro Tools, pretty much all the DAWs at that point, but the music I was making wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn it, I feel like I'm like at a professional level of understanding the fundamentals, but I just lacked the polish, you know?
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, it's like you said, you know, like when you're first getting started, you have these certain expectations of what it's going to be like. I think the best way to describe it is like, you know, when you first start making music, you're like, yeah, I'm about to make a hit and blow up. You know, like that's the mindset. But
exactly.
Excuse me. You start to learn everything that really comes into even just making a track, like a good track, not like, let alone like actually marketing it and like being able to push it, you know. So... yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a natural progression, but how you respond to that is really like kind of, I guess, you know, like what's going to tell it all is like if you decide to stick with it or if you decide to just like cut your losses, you know.
Exactly.
So with that, what made you decide to stick with it?
Meeting more people and just like being vulnerable around those people. Because the first few artists that I worked with, I understood their vision and I wanted to go with their vision.
Yeah.
And there was no vulnerability, there was no communication, it was just A to B. But when I started, especially like when I moved out to Indiana and when I was starting college, I decided, you know what, I'll just reach out to whoever. Just open my doors and try and make these connections.
Yeah.
And through that, it was just eye-opening. I said, like, okay, I can take that criticism and I can give out advice. And through both taking the criticism and giving out the advice, I can see a whole nother perspective of art, you know?
The mental aspect kind of elevates as you go along with it, and I think that's also the beauty in it, you know, like, especially like even with this podcast, you know, like I've been able to create actual friends through the medium of us having a mutual interest in wanting to both become something, you know, like we all ideally want to be something in this life, and I think that when those paths do cross, you know, like it's like building a web, you know, every new connection is just another extension of the web that's going to eventually become like the whole system, you know, and the whole network.
Yeah.
So I think that I definitely align with you in saying that, you know, like the connections is really what like breeds the passion. That's like the second wave of passion, you know, because it's one thing to be feeling yourself because you made like your first good product, but it's another thing to get acknowledged from it by your peers.
For sure, yeah.
So tell me about this Emmy though. Like, cause that shit, like, I feel like, you know, that's a great way for us to lead into that. Because obviously there was like, I mean, skill gap. You apparently that shit out.
So in between me not knowing what the fuck I was doing and me knowing what the fuck I was doing, was an incredible mentor. And so I met this guy, Rick Andrus. Met him through, he was the assistant to a lady, Chelsea Vanderdrink, who was recording one of my dad's concerts. And so he was just kicking it in the back.
Yeah.
And I like pleaded for a minute. I was like, hey, let me sit in on this.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in the back with bro, and we're just shooting the shit. We're just talking about, oh, you seen this new plugin? Like, shit producers do, you know?
Yeah.
But he's kind of freaked out because he's like, wait, this dude's like 12, 13 years old. Why is he talking like this crazy production shit? And so I annoyed him to the point I got his contact info, whatnot, and I just kept annoying him. Hey, let me pull up to the session. Hey, let me da-da-da-da-da. But he understood what I was looking for, and he made me work for it too. And I think that like really put a lot of insight into the whole industry and how it works. Like, man, he would have me, you know, make coffee back to back to back. Everybody would finish their coffee. I'd have to make another round of coffee. Man, setting up sessions like before he even shows up, cleaning the room afterwards. Like,
and this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just so you could be able to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, I'm not participating. I'm just in the background, like taking notes on a notepad. I'm not supposed to have my phone out. Like, man, you know, running, getting food, just being the intern.
Yeah.
But with the studio, like, it's a whole nother level to it because at the same time, you kind of got to be a shark.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of got to fight your way for the respect and to be like, nah, look, let me show you that I know what I'm doing. I'm going to get it set up before you show up, no errors. And now you have to let me do more shit around here. Now I can't be doing coffee because you know I got this.
Yeah.
And so it really forced me to, like, you know, stand up for myself professionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so what led you, so by being a part of the session, you were a part of, like you got listed on
so
the
with
people
that,
who made the track, or like how did that play out?
Yeah, so that specifically, I was probably like 13 years old, and it was one of those things where I was bugging Rick, and he said, okay, there's a performance, it's a live show over at Xavier, the fucking Xavier University in Cincinnati.
Mm.
So we go over to their live arena, load in, I brought my laptop, and he's like, okay, here's the plan. It's a big band. It's called the Blue West Jazz Band. Whew, excuse me. I knew that shit was gonna happen. And so we pull in. I brought some of my mics. He brought some of his. We like had rented some gear. They had rented some gear there. You know, spent like 2 hours setting up. Went, got a sandwich. Came back, finished setting up, did our line check. And so basically what was happening was Rick was doing the live mix and feed for the concert, sending it out their PAs, and then I was just taking a cable from the stage box and plugging it into my laptop and recording all the audio files so that later we could go in and mix it down and then put that out for like later TV.
Yeah.
So ended up doing that live. It was broadcasted live, I think locally. And they did a bigger broadcast later with the video and the mix. And then, I was just on Facebook. I see Rick tags me in a post like, hey, congratulations. Like, the Ohio region has put us up for an Emmy nomination. And that was that. Have my name on the little Ohio Valley Emmy website. Must have been like 2014. 2013, 2014. It was crazy. I was looking at the Facebook post came up as like a recent memory recently, and I was like, shit. I always forget that happened. I mean, like, you know, I didn't win it or nothing, but
still to even be in contention is like, you know, like that's like an amazing stride.
Kind of crazy.
A lot of people won't hit that point.
Yeah.
You know? Dang. So like, with you having that experience, did it open up more doors for you later on throughout being, or because you were a part of that, or was it still more work to be done after the fact?
It definitely helped, like, prove myself professionally, but it didn't really do anything too great.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I got some gigs at, like, a local church I was doing live sound at back in, like, high school, and, like, I was doing sound for all the high school bands. They'd play at bars and whatnot. Helping my friends with, like, their school movies, all that.
Yeah.
Helping out small bands in Cincinnati. And then more recording with Rick. But, you know, it's just one of those things, and my dad had always, like, sort of joked with me that it doesn't feel like you'd expect it to feel. And that rings true for all those, like, big accomplishments, because I feel like as humans we just want more.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we'll take an achievement down and then it's just in our nature to go on to the next.
Yeah. And to a certain extent, it is like another form of, I'm not going to say it's like another form of work, but it is, because like at the end of the day, you know, like you want to set yourself to a certain standard, or to, if someone's like trying to get something done through you, there's like a deadline and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like it's a better alternative to like whatever else is out there, you know?
Yeah.
So like, when did you really start like making bread off of it? Like, did that come like a lot later on, like from when you started, or did you always have like an idea of how to turn your passion into a dollar sign?
So it kind of always started from turning it into a dollar sign, just because my parents were always of the mentality that, like, if I wanted something, I had to earn it.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out individual methods to, you know, get money to do what I wanted to do. So I sort of sat down and made a game plan, and my parents helped me out with it too, because, you know, they wanted to see me succeed with it. And I sort of came to them with this idea. I was like, look, I'm going to start, you know, mowing the neighborhood lawns. You know, I started working down at a coffee shop, like got my first job, and just like, you know, doing odd jobs and whatnot, taking trash out for like the elderly people in my neighborhood so they wouldn't have to, you know, walk down to the curb, like you name it, anything like a 13, 14-year-old can you do to get some bread.
Yeah.
And so, you know, got the interface, the speakers, but I realized I didn't have anything under my belt to make the bread off recording with. I was like, I can't really prove myself off that. Like, even though I had the Emmy nomination, like, that was, like, really off some live sound shit. Like, it wasn't really some studio recording. So I was like, I gotta find out something that's like parallel that I can make some bread off of while learning music production and music skills, whatnot. So I realized, okay, DJing is gonna be the best route.
Yeah.
You make a lot of money, you make your return back on gear real quick, and I was like, I could get cash under the table. I'm young, like, you know, who doesn't want to like?
I mean, it's
bro,
like, it's
DJ your block party.
Yeah,
your little 14-year-old's gonna like
and
play some music. Yeah,
especially like if you're setting the vibe for like I mean, obviously for school events you gotta keep it like, you know, whatever. But like still to even be able to kind of set the vibe and you're like, yeah, I know they're gonna go crazy once this shit comes on. Like, you know, like it's still decent. It's still decent. Yeah.
And so I, you know, saved up for the mixer, the speakers. And then I just had a little like mobile DJ rig. I'd pull up wherever, set the speakers up, laptop, and just play some music.
Damn, so now, well, actually, I did want to ask about 13 and Friends, because I didn't have the opportunity to listen to the tracks on it before I pulled up. However, I see like the vision of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, like just kind of like same way that like Metro does his shit, he just gets his friends on tracks and, you know, like rap on my shit. I want this shit to be out. I want people to hear it. Like that. So like, how did that? How long have you been making records like that? And have you ever dabbled in music yourself? Like, have you ever hopped on a mic?
For sure. So I haven't really hopped on a mic until like recently.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, just last night I was recording with my roommate, Don Pop. He does a lot of like cool like reggaeton, like, but also rap, but also like pop, but like anything.
Mm-hmm.
Cool dude. And so we were recording last night because I've been trying to step out of the box in that way. But with that album, I kind of wanted to get into this theme of doing almost like seasons of a show or seasons of my life. That one was like all my Indiana vibe. Like, you can sort of tell from the cover, I feel like I wanted to Photoshop, it's just a collage of all my memories when I was living in Indiana. And I feel like it kind of gives off that vibe too, through the music and through the art. But yeah, just wanted to get all my friends together and like show that moment in time and be like, look, this is what I was doing, this is what we all were doing.
Yeah.
And like, this is the vibe. And then what's the next vibe? And I didn't put it out till I moved to Chicago because I felt like I didn't want to leave anything missing, leave anything behind. I wanted that project to go from the start to the finish of that Indiana experience.
Damn, so throughout navigating in the music scene, what were, like, have you had like some like bad experiences tracking people? Like, has anybody ever like bugged out in the studio on you or some shit?
For sure. I mean, like, it definitely comes with the industry.
Yeah.
And the way that I really think of it is like, and I feel like I like say this to a lot of people and it like clears it up. You have like the top dogs.
Yeah.
And then you have the you know, beginner artists and intro artists.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the middlemen. And like, I've recorded some incredible like rock stars. And they're a joy to work with.
Yeah.
Like, super level-headed, like modest, down to earth, like valet, incredible to work with, super cool dude. Mensa, real chill to work with. Like,
you work with Vic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I was at Jungle Lords, he had the B room there.
Yeah.
So I was the head engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was teaching the interns, also helping Vic out, helping them with the setup, whatnot.
Decent. Did you guys cook up some decent shit?
Man, like, I remember putting like 3-4 beats on one of his flash drives. Like, fingers crossed that something would happen with them. But I just got the text like, oh yeah, these are crazy. I texted back like, yeah, right? Like,
like, you gonna do something with it?
But you know, like, yeah, Jeremiah, like, the list goes on. Like, there's some real cool people out there.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you start getting down to, like, their homies who, like to hang out in the room and, like, will come in and do a session themselves, then it starts to get a little weird because they have the clout associated with who they're fucking with.
Yeah.
But they think that they're, like, a pop star.
Themselves.
Yeah. And that's where it gets hairy. I love working with, like, yeah, it's crazy. Like,
damn, do you have, like, any specific story about, like, someone just doing some goofy shit? Like, obviously,
man,
you know,
I'm not gonna say names. Yeah, I had this artist who, whose homies were recording in the B room, and he says he's pulling up with another prominent artist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, cool. They know each other, it's whatever. The artists who are pulling up know the artists who are already at the studio. So I'm like, it's cool, everybody's friends. It's going to be a great situation. People in the B room are leaving, headed out the front door. I'm like, even better. Nobody's going to be in the studio when these two rock stars show up.
Yeah.
It's going to be chill. They apparently were already making their way around the corner in like a Cadillac or something. Saw the people leaving. I get a phone call. Hey, who the fuck is at the studio? I'm like, oh no, that's your homie so-and-so. They're leaving.
Yeah.
Like, you know them. You're cool. He's like, nah, it didn't look like them. I'm like, I swear that's them. Like, we just dapped up, they left, I was that. Like, I don't know, bro, I'm gonna make one more round. His friend, who he's with the other prominent artist, says, nah, I'm not doing this. Leaves. He still pulls up, though.
Yeah.
We're in the session, whatnot. Artist comes, the artist who had left is coming back around the block. We're in the studio and they start tweaking over the surveillance camera. It's over there on the wall, like 8 panels, and they're looking at, wait, who's coming back around? And they start going like Counter-Strike Global Offensive, like thinking that they're spec ops up against the wall, like checking the corners, like
just bugging out.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't know, like
you're probably just sitting there like
yeah, we're cool, bro. I mean, most of the time I'm the most sober person in the room too. Yeah. Like, yeah, I don't know. I had to like, cause there's a point where I got like, yeah, I love working with these like nose rings, fuck. Love working with like these big name artists and whatnot, but sometimes when they don't give you the respect that you deserve and you know that, it's like, man, I'm making the same amount of money working with them that I'm making working with SoundCloud Joe. Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna go with SoundCloud Joe.
At least he's chill, like.
You know, I know he's gonna pay me on time and not make a fuss about it, and like,
sure.
And he's gonna listen to me when I say like, hey, that's not it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, can take critique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, yeah, a lot of these big artists don't know, like, that I've been out here. Like, that I've been at the Grammys, that I got the Emmy nomination, that, like, I've been places that they've never been in their life.
Mm-hmm.
But they probably won't get to go to.
True.
And it's like, I'm doing nothing but trying to help them and get them out there. So when that's not reciprocated, it's like, what did Ariana Grande say? Thank you, next.
I mean, you gotta. Sometimes you really gotta treat the situation like that because you can't help everybody, regardless of like as much as you want to. You know, it's just an impossible task. So you gotta just kind of charge it to the game and keep it moving.
Yeah.
You know? But tell me, so throughout all of this, throughout your entire journey through the music, what do you think has been like one of the biggest lessons that you've learned through this shit? Like if you met someone who was 12,
yeah,
that wanted to start doing this, like what kind of like expectations would you give that person?
I'd say be yourself. Don't let anybody else influence you to the point where you're trying to be them, because like your individuality and your uniqueness is like the most beautiful thing, and that's what will end up being your art and your creativity. And if that wavers any way from like who you are, then it starts to get corny.
Yeah.
And it starts to get just inauthentic, you know.
Yeah. That's real. That's real. I mean, you got anything else you want to say to the people, say to the camera?
Don't take the TikTok mixing tips.
Yeah.
don't take any mastering advice from somebody on YouTube. Yeah. Use your ears. That's all. That's like my biggest piece of advice. If it sounds good, it is good.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody else tells you otherwise, talk with them about it. But like at the end of the day, it's your ears. Like, trust in them.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here first.